Okay, so this is a hush of heaven holds my heart today. This is the day that has been chosen as a time which I come to understand the lesson that there is no need that I do anything. And actually, this is a very good day for this lesson for me, um, mostly because something came up, and I have a close friend of mine here with me. So we're going to take a ride up to the North Bay, and it was totally unplanned, and yet when it was there to do it, everything came together so easily that it really was obvious that things are happening by the grace of God more so and more so every day. The stillness of today will give us hope that we have found the way. Isn't that beautiful? And traveled far along it to a wholly certain goal. Today we will not doubt the end which God Himself has promised us. We trust in Him and in ourselves, who still is one with Him. I and Him and Him and me. Him and me. Him and I. Um, when He talks about things of that nature, when He says, today we will not doubt the end which God Himself has promised us. Having had, and it's in the course, having had a revelatory experience and a revelation, including the understanding of the coming to a close of this sojourn into space and time, I would like to witness to and attest to the fact that I have no doubt about the end which God Himself has promised, and I trust in Him and in ourselves, um, because in that revelation there was only a single whole creative reality which I could not be a part of, which I could not be separate from, and yet there was a totality which I was whole and perfect in, and yet there was a greater, a magnitude, a glorious reality to the totality, and how do I say this? And a joyful and peaceful recognition that while I was one with that, there was more to it than just me, and there was a wholeness and perfection. And I don't know how to say it, but a universal guiding creative force that is totally beneficial and beneficent. Father, how still today? And that's as we learn to still our mind and rid it of the drama that the ego thrives on. Now, believe me, I think there's a misunderstanding in all this. And part of the misunderstanding is that those who are awakening and those who have found, let's use the terminology that Jesus uses today, those who have found a stillness in their own mind, many of those remain within the world operating just as I am here in a natural sort of peaceful way, and yet seem to be in the midst of the same drama that everybody else is in, wherein which the obsession and compulsion takes place, and the driving nature, the driven nature of the ego that gets played out in your physical and bodily experience controls many, because many still think that the things of this world are what gives you your value, and many still think that there's a punishing God that is waiting for us to do something wrong, or right for that matter, in order for Him to enter into our life and validate us one way or the other. And yet that's not the nature of the wholeness and perfection that we are. And in the stillness, it really is true. And in the stillness, all things are already won. All decisions have already been made. And I assure you of it. And that's what Jesus is doing. Jesus, as the first one who achieved or completed his part within the atonement in space and time, is at the end of time and beyond time, explaining to you exactly what's going on. And yet, in the fevered nightmare that many of us still believe we are in, our response to Jesus is much the same as the response to the rest of the nightmare, which is why at some point in time you require an unequivocal call in order to signal the power which can enter in your willingness and readiness, because, as I was told directly, it is not God's will to destroy anything, for there is no destruction in the will of God. There's only creation. God is what creation and love is. It is not God's will for the destruction of anything, including an illusion of space and time, wherein which his son thinks he is lost. But it is his will that each one come to choose freely by their own volition to awaken from the nightmare within which they've been participating, unbeknownst to them, until the experience comes to augment the certainty that you're being given by Jesus here in this course. I come to understand the lesson that there is no need that I do anything. In you is every choice already made. Yes, and it's not that you won't appear to be doing things. It's not that you will sit and do nothing. It's that the doing will be happening through you. You will witness miracles through you. Miracles induce action. The actions that you take will be induced by the nature of your own miraculous mind in union with the wholeness of the creative reality, rather than the action that you take being dictated by the ego that is always attempting to defend and protect itself, defend itself by attacking others in order to make itself feel better, without looking at the truth of what's occurring directly with the help of something that could actually know. There's a section in the course that says, you ask the one thing that doesn't know anything, what about? And then you think you have an answer, but the uncertainty in their mind is just, in a sense, unable to be shared, so you're left with no sort of experience of anything but uncertainty. So, what is uncertain of itself, as it says, misses what the totality of reality is. There's none of this. There's sort of a little laughter by the idea that you can be uncertain of yourself. In you has every conflict been resolved. Okay, if here is Jesus telling you, in you, our Father, every conflict has been solved. And likewise, you are one with your Father, and your Father is one with you, and we are all one as the Christ within the totality of reality, then within you as well have all problems been solved, or at least, and this is what the tech pro reminded me one day, and this I think was important because it brings it down to a practical and human level. The theoretical framework is, in you have all problems been solved, because in your Father all problems have been solved because they do not exist. There are no problems in God, so in God all problems have been solved. The Holy Spirit, which is the section we use, is the mediator between dreams and illusion, and in him the memory of God is all there is, along with the unity of his experience with you. Okay? So while you could forget, he never forgets. And when you bring a problem to him, his ever-present remembrance and recognition of the fact that all problems are the same, and the solution is one, makes its way into your mind through his, and you see through the light of the totality the unreality of the problem and rejoice. Okay? So in you are all conflict gone as well. Now this is what the tech pro may be aware of. It's not that I know how all conflict ends. It's that I have the ability to contact that within me, wherein which all conflict is solved, when I am brought into a situation where conflict exists, because there, as a miracle worker or a teacher of God, I can utilize my mind or be present in the stillness of my own mind, in the conflict that seems to exist, and allow a miraculous solution to develop through me, not because I did anything, simply because I listened to that which is already in touch with the fact and the reality wherein which all problems have been solved, because separation wasn't a problem because it never occurred. Is that understandable? That's what we're being given. Your love is heaven and your love is mine. Heaven is in your mind. As Steve Winwood wrote, guiding our vision of heaven, and heaven is in our mind. And in that sense, this is about a new heaven, a heaven that we finally understand. God is not a punishing God. There is no fear in God. A heaven in which we remember our reality is love, and therefore there is only love. A heaven which God is not a vengeful God, and sickness, suffering, and death do not exist. A heaven in which there is no opposite. That heaven, as it replaces our old thoughts of God in our mind, allows us to project and perceive a new earth that now begins to reflect the light of heaven that's entering into our mind and hearts. And so a love of man and mankind is taking place. No one knows what to do with that yet, simply because they haven't discovered the ability for the hush of heaven to hold them and to recognize that all solutions have been solved. Many of you, especially you younger ones who are undergoing this process, will be placed in situations later in life when a lot of the problems that seem to be unsolved now will be solved through you, easily and miraculously, simply because of the nature of the desire within the human heart and spirit for peace and love to be the law, because peace and love is the law of God, and the law of man means nothing in the face of that. So take heart, the hush of heaven holds my heart, so it holds your heart, because it's a single shared heart. And we can do this wholeheartedly together, because deep down inside, all we've ever wanted was to be happy and to know what love is. To love and be loved are one and the same. George Benson.